Good morning. We are, Bezos Hashem, starting with Ribis. I'll start again from the beginning just to make it a clean start. Siman Kutim test. Dvar Torah muter lahavos avik kochavim. Dvar Torah, it's muter to lend to a non-Jew beribis. The machlokas rishonim, is it a mitzvah, a chiyuv, a mitzvah, or just a heter? The Ramban says it's just a heter. The Rambam says it's a mitzvah. Now it's unclear in the Rambam whether it's a mitzvah, whether it's a mitzvah or a chiyuv. It's a chiyuv. Some say it's mitam lo sachanim, that they give him a free loan. It's like lo sachanim. So therefore, if that's the case, then if you recognize it, if you makir him, then it would be okay. It was saying it would be okay if you give him a free loan. Other people learn the Rambam. I think the Ramban learns the Rambam that it's a chiyuv gomor. Sorry, that it's there's a Megillas Esther. I think learns that it's a mitzvah. So it's just a mitzvah ba'alma but you're not chayiv to. Achopanim, Lashon of the Mechaber is muter lahalvos, not mitzvah lahalvos. So it seems to be going like not like the Rambam. The Chachamim asruhu, but the Chachamim asrud it imlo kedei chayav if it's not pikuch nefesh or Talmid Chacham. The issue is that you might come to learn from their, close to them and learn from them. So, or Talmid Chacham is not going to learn from them. Or Ribis D'Rabbanan, or if it's Ribis D'Rabbanan or not. So, Choshesh, Ribis D'Rabbanan, we're going to see. There, I'll just speak a couple of klalim. Ribis Ksutza, Ribis D'Oraisa is Ribis Ksutza, meaning that I give you, is that I'll lend 100, and you're going to give me back 200. Simple. That's Ribis Ksutza. D'Oraisa, it's planned. The loan is planned like that, and that's considered Ribis D'Oraisa. General discussion about what the reason, what the svar, or the asvar, a little bit of svar over here, that the Chashmul, Reb Chaim Soloveitchik says that it's an idea of this is part of the loan. If this is something that it's something which is it's part of the actual deal of the loan. The Rashba, in different places, I don't remember who he says it in. The Rashba says it's an idea of schira, so you're renting his money. It's the idea of, you're using my money for a certain amount of time, so you're renting my money, so you have to go ahead and pay me for that. You're renting it, the use of it. So there's two different understandings. The nafkaminas I don't remember. We'll have to, as we go through, we'll keep that in mind. Ribis D'Rabbanan. Ribis D'Rabbanan is generally, but there are a bunch of different Ribis D'Rabbanan. Those are the ones we normally interact with. One basic case is derech mekach umemkar, that if you're buying and selling things and you let them have things on credit, and then the price goes up, can you give it back, or things like that, or that's Ribis D'Rabbanan. V'ha'ida muter b'chol inyan, and we paskin nowadays it's muter because anyway you're doing business b'chol inyan, the Ramal says, and so therefore there's no issues nowadays. B'chlal. Interesting side point, just Iyun, the Birkei Yosef, the Chida brings machlokes. Interesting machlokes is someone brings a raya, discussion about Yoreh. It says that the Vaja, one of the things, he borrowed money, Ribis, from Yoram Melech, to support the Nevi'im. That's what it says. His widow, Almana. That's why Elisha came. She couldn't pay it back because the Ribis kept on rising. So that's why the whole miracle with the oil. So he asks, he says, but it wasn't, wasn't Yoram a goy. His mother was Izevel. And then Izevel didn't seem to be the best Gioris. So, um, so he brings a raya from there that it's mutter lahalvos, it's mutter to borrow money from a goy beribis, if you need to. But the Chida says, the Chida says a question about it. He says his raya is not a good raya because Tosis in Avodah Zarah says that Yoram was called him Yisrael Mumar. And so the reason why Avadra was mutter to borrow from him was because of Pekuach Nefesh. So there's a bit of a discussion about whether you'd be allowed, if Stam be allowed to go ahead and take loans from a goy. I think the general, we'll see that, we'll see what the halacha is, but it's just not an interesting side point about in Tanakh already about Ribis. Sif Beis Mumar Mutter Lahavois of a Ribis. A Mumar is it's permitted to lend him beribis, but also allows him beribis. It's also to borrow from him from Ribis. Now the question is why it's mutter, because the din of Moridin, right? Just like we just had the din of Moridin, so Ribis is the same type of idea. It's serious enough to call it Moridin. Medrinim Lachayev. It's the pasuk says imach, and it says that you lend someone beribis, you're going ahead and destroying his life. Or it has the potential to destroy his life, as people fall into debt, and we know it's a thing, and so therefore it's mutter. So for a mummer, it's mutter to do moridin, it's mutter to vahavos and beribis, because you're not mitzuva lachayosa. Some say the pshat is because it says cheachicha imach, and a mummer is not a mummer lahachis or meshumad really, doesn't have the din of achicha. He has a shem achicha. It's totally a bunch of sugyas, whatever. However, it's also allows him in beribis because he's still a Jew, and that's you can't be over on lifnei iver to machshel him in Isser Ribis. There's a general discussion about the loive. What's the Isser of a loive to pay back Ribis? Is it like is it Isser b'fnei atzmoi that it's also for a loive to pay Ribis, or is that it's kashur to the it's depends on the it's kashur to the Isser of the malve, that you are chelik of his Isser of lending by paying him back Ribis. You are, just like we'll see later on, that Adim and all these things it's all also for them to be involved in the transaction. You're also involved in the transaction by paying him back. Akopanim over here, it's definitely the reason it's also is clearly because of Lifnei Iver. Hagav yesh machmirin af b'mumar lahavoisa. Some say it's still also to lend him tov lahachmir efshar lishamit mimenu. And some say it's ish lahachmir, and also because he has a shem achicha, he still is Yisrael and a full Yisrael. Therefore, you should not he's not yotzim in a klal. Therefore, it would still be also. And the Rambam says, therefore, you should be careful not to go ahead and lend to them. Unless we get into heteriskas much later on. But Chopanim, it doesn't, especially here in Eretz Yisrael, doesn't make a difference. Whoever you're lending to, you should still Nisar Ribis. Gimel Kusim Yesh Lahem Din. No, because here it's okay. The Chutzar, the main shilas are from Goyim, and throughout the Doros is about Goyim. Eretz Yisrael, and so therefore Ribis actually wasn't so learned so strong, because it's like basic halachas of Goyim and whatever. But in modern day, with living with now we're dealing with business with other Jews who are not from on a regular basis here in Eretz Yisrael. So therefore, if they're not from, not this, whatever, therefore you have to misyachas to say here in Eretz Yisrael, it's still also, even though you say, he's a mummer, he's not from, he's this, whatever you want to call. According to the Ramah, he's still, any transaction, you're a banker, you're this, has to be done has to be done with the guidelines of Ribis. Gimel Kusim Yesh Lahem Din Mumar Lavos Kochavim. Here we're talking the actual Kusim. They have a din of a Mumar Lavos Kochavim. Hakaraim ein lahem din mumrim. They don't have a din of mumrim. But also la'avoisa beribis. It's also to lend them money beribis. Ve'ein tzarich lemer also lavos mehem beribis. It's also to borrow from them beribis. Again, we're talking about the Karaim, which were from the time of the Rambam, which were a whole different sect, and they were like the Tzdukim, and there's a whole question. Nowadays, there's no Karaim, even if you heard of the Karaim sect. Apparently, the last actual Karaim were wiped out. They lived in the Crimea, and they were killed in the Holocaust. The Nazis killed them. So they're like nowadays it's just they're not the real Karaim, unless there are a few stragglers, whatever. The people in charge are not. It's just a weird cult. It's not the actual Karaim that we're talking about over here. But we could talk about a similar thing. Is the Karaim is used to also talk about people who didn't keep Torah mitzvahs and their children, and how do you misyachis to them? So therefore the din also the din would apply by that. Hagava ayin. Lekama ayin le'el simkuften zayin kuf chafdal din anusim. How do you understand the din of anusim? V'tinoik shenishba lebeinu of the kochavim. V'tinoik shenishba ve'eni yodea b'Torah Yisrael. And he doesn't know anything about Torah Yisrael. Klal dino kekaraim. They have the same din as a karaim, but also lahavos al beribis, because you know he's Jewish, right? If you have if you have to have proper yichus of his mother, I don't know, whatever. But akopanim, he's called a tinok shenishba, and therefore it's also to lend him a ribis. So lachem mumeres lavodas kachavim sheyesh la bemin avi kachavim. So mishumedes, that's what it should be. A woman who became changed to a different religion, and she has a son from married a goy. Shehaben harehu kumoya, that he is Jewish. V'nikra mumar, he's called a mumar. Also lahavos lo beribis, it's also to lend him money beribis. To have a ketinok shenishba ve'eno v'kochavim, it's the same din as a ketinok shenishba. Even though his father is not Jewish, he's still considered Jewish, and therefore it's still forbidden to lend him. One of the chidushim over here is also we don't have to be choishesh that maybe that we know that we can samich on her that it's her son and v'chulei, and therefore right. So like the Piskul Chutz Rabaz who says Heretic Sveika im ben mumer zehu mina v'skochavim o mumeres. Then muter lahavos beribis. If there's a suffix, let's say there's a mumar, meshumad, who is married to, he's married to a meshumedes, but there's a suffix about the parentage of the kid, about whether he had another wife or whether he whatever the case may be. It says if there's a suffix b'chlal, so then he paskins that then you would be allowed to go ahead and lend him money with ribis. Fine. Kuf Samech. Now we're going to start getting into the actual Hilchos Ribis. Aleph. Tzarich Lizar Beribis. We have to be very careful in Hilchos Ribis. Kama Lavin Nemrubo, and there's many Lavin which are mentioned. Filu Haloive and Hanoisna, even the Loive who's giving the money, Ha'arev, and the Arev, Ha'edim, Oivrim, anyone who's involved in, you go to a bank without a heter iska, and you sign on a loan, that person is over on a lav of his ribis, and so therefore a person has to be careful with that. Hagav ein chiluk beini malve la'ani or la'asher. There's no chiluk between whether you lend to an ani or an asher. It's still over on a lav. The loive over dafka beribis deraisa. The loive is only over ribis deraisa. Ribis derabanan ain't over el mishum lifnei iver. But Ribis derabanan he's only over because of lifnei iver. So a loive has two isurim. He's over a lav of ribis in general and a lav of lifnei iver. If it's just this is derabanan, so then it's only an isur of lifnei iver. Kol Kol hanoisen beribis nechasav yispointim. Anyone who lends beribis, he's not going to make money. His nechasim, instead, he's going to be punished that his nechasim are going to fall apart. Are going to get lessened. Kilu kafar v'tzias Mitzrayim. It's kilu he's kofer v'tzias Mitzrayim ubelokei Yisrael. It says ani Hashem in the psukim. It's very strong iser. One of the time I remember I looked into one of the reasons it's the time of the Quran a little bit why it's such a strong isser is that it shows a complete 100% lack of bitachon, because a person, every business still has a bit of risk to it. So a certain amount of bitachon a person has or can have that it should go through. But Ribis is I have money and my money makes money. There's no, and we'll see about this as we go along, that if there's no potential loss by Ribis, if he doesn't pay back, but assuming he pays back, there's no potential loss by Ribis. It's complete 100% revach. So therefore, it's sort of Kilu cutting Kosh Baruch Hu out of the picture. That that he's not that I have complete faith in my own money and my own self. It's not. It shows that he has no bitachon b'chlal. Time of the Quran a little bit, but al kopanim, we'll see later on that there are issues of Ribis D'Rabbanan where there's where one side it has to be if there's a point where there's only a little bit of risk, then it's called Ribis. Where there's a lot of risk, it's not. We'll get into that much later. Different types of deals. So therefore, that does make a difference in the definition of Hilchos Ribis. That as the Lashon he brings from the Brisa and Ezel Neshech. Shemisimim Moshe Rabbeinu Chacham v'Taraso Emes she'amar ilu yada, if Moshe knew she'ish revach bedavar lo haya koisvoi. The Lashon is that if Moshe Rabbeinu knew how much money you can make off a Ribis, he wouldn't have written such a thing. That's the Lashon of the Gemara. It's the same. It's a certain idea.
So that's the kfira.
That's the kfira. Yeah, that's the kfira. Gimel hatoyla ma'oisav lo ma'shehem she'od chachavim. He does our Rambam, says, no, I'm not just lending out the goy's money. U'mavo some Ribis Kosh Baruch Hu yifra mimenu, someone who lies and stuff, whatever. Kosh Baruch Hu it says he's going to turn his face towards him, and it's a very chomor dim. Also because it says it's like a shichas nachash. It mamish destroys people's lives. So that's why it's such a chomor iser. Daled, I feel im aloyve noisin lo yoser midaitoi b'shas piron. Even if a lover gives extra, it's not a deal. But at the end, if he throws in a little bit extra b'shas piron. Shlo hisimo wasn't made. It wasn't an original part of the original loan. Ve'ena oimer shenoisin lo yoser b'shel Ribis also. He has. I'm very nizzir from Ribis. I'm just gonna. It's just here's a little gift, it's a little extra gift, unless it's like, we'll get into things, if it's someone you normally give a gift to, and then you can, we'll take a discussion and give it to your kids, things like that. But the guy who loans him money, he throws a little bit extra, it's also midrabanan, there's a suffix. Well, I think if there's a suffix about how much, if people don't realize how much you don't remember how much you owe, it's better to err like a little bit less than more. But I do think that I don't think it's mamash asur in that case, because you're doing it because of suffix mama. We're going to get into that. It's whether we're going to tell a bit later about if there's a suffix. I don't think it's asur, but I think it's better to give to put it lower. If he didn't get the money derech halva, rach derech mecher mutter b'chayagavna, then it would be mutter to go ahead, because this is called ribis mucheres. Ribis mucheres on a din d'Rabbanan, so then it's like zera. Then we're not if he doesn't say that I'm giving it to you because you gave me on credit, and if he doesn't say anything, that's the thing. The Chiddush is if he says it, it's also even still. But if he doesn't say anything, he just throws a little extra in, then that's going to be, then that will be okay. Hey, afil im amar lei b'shas lekichas haribis ani noisi lecha b'matana also lekabel b'menu. The Lova says, listen, I'm not going to give you ribis. I'm going to give you a gift, right? That's still also to take it take it from him. Im lakach b'menu ribis v'tzarach lachzir lo. If he actually took a loan to Ribis, and like I said, he's chayiv because this is an actual monetary deal, and al pi choshen mishpat, he's actually chayiv to return the money because this was the deal. Akopanim, but it's also to do it. No elis mechila lepatro k'mo kol gezel. Mechila, it's okay. You can be meichel. The person, it's mutter to be meichel. The malva can be meichel the loive like any other gezel that. He's allowed to. So the loive can go ahead and be meichel the money to the. The malva, the loive can be meichel the money just like any gezel. If he took the money already, he can be meichel the money just like by exela.
And so the lover gives extra money. It wasn't
right.
This no. So now the mama needs to give it back.
No, even hisna, even if they made it tonight. Well, this is going to be discussed later on more in detail. It's just a klal that also that the idea of ribis is like gezel. The Gemara compares it to gezel. Taking ribis is like a lekicha. He's lekicha's gezel. He's taking money that doesn't belong to him. So therefore, he could still be the lover can still be meichel. Matana masahachzir ribis also, even in matana masahachzir, by ribis is still also, so a person has to be careful not to give anything extra because just as an extra he shouldn't. It's also for him to give it.
At the beginning of the show, did you discuss the mitzvah of ribis?